Souljourns presents a beautiful, amusing story of Sai Baba's direct involvement in bringing together for life a singer named Diane and a magician named Jeff. This was back in the late 1980s when Jeff decided to give a book he liked to his friend Diane.
I sent the book to Diane. It was the first book I'd ever sent to her and said, you got to read this chapter on this person named Sai Baba. So I sent it to her.
But the truth was, Diane was not impressed.
So I read the book. I come to the part about Baba, and I'm like, it was too much for me. I mean, it was just too weird. I mean, it really was. I don't know what else to say.
Well, so that didn't sit very well with Jeff. But nonetheless, the couple fell in love. Both became Sai Baba devotees in Atlanta, and on their way to see Sai Baba in India, Jeff suggested they both get married.
And I said, well, I tell you what, I'm not giving you an answer. I'm not marrying you unless Sai Baba tells me to, period. Now, we all know what the odds on that were, right?
So, what do you suppose happened? Well, you'll soon find out. By the way, Souljourns first met Diane and her daughter at Sai Baba's ashram Christmas week, 2009.
Well, we were coming to do service, and we weren't sure if we were going to be in decorating or the choir, and they needed us here, so we thought, well, we'll do both. So we'll decorate things, and then we'll add some music.
So your seva is to lift people's spirits?
We hope so.
Welcome to Souljourns and to the love story of Jeff and Diane, two people brought together by Sri Satya Sai Baba, produced by the Satya Sai Baba Center of Atlanta, who granted us permission to share their story here on Souljourns.
We've been members at the Sai Baba Center in Atlanta since 1987, when I first moved to Atlanta and married this young lady. It's an interesting story how we got there, because I was a comedian up in New York, and Diane was a singer-songwriter here in Atlanta. And though we tried to date long distance, we felt that our relationship was really having problems trying to get together permanently. So we were friends, and I was taking an acting lesson in New York. And as it turned out, the husband of my acting teacher had just ghostwritten a book for a magician who had experience with a spiritual being in India named Sai Baba. And he had seen him manifest vibhuti. And as a magician, I was fascinated, because usually it's lay people that are checking out whether somebody's doing a miracle, and they don't know the stuff that we know. And being a close-up magician for 20 years, it was great to see a magician do this. So I was fascinated about it. Plus, he sounded like this wonderful beings. So I sent the book to Diane. It was the first book I'd ever sent to her, and said, you got to read this chapter on this person named Sai Baba. So I sent it to her.
So I get the book, and I had been raised very Catholic, and then kind of took a break from that and really just hadn't been particularly spiritual at all for a while. And I had been touring with some country music stars and things, so that was kind of my life at the time. And so I get the book, and in the meantime, I'd started going to a Unity church. So I was opening up a little bit there. And so I read the book. I come to the part about Baba, and I'm like, it was too much for me. I mean, it was just too weird. I mean, it really was. I don't know what else to say. So he calls me and says, what'd you think? And I said, well, I mean, it's very interesting, but that's a little over the top there, In the meantime, I was having a party, and somebody that I had invited called and said, hey, would it trouble you if I brought somebody with me? I've got a meeting with somebody, and we're going to be, near your house. I said, oh yeah, sure, no problem at all. And so the party started, and the two guys came in, and one of them, the person that crashed my party, was Cosby Powell, who first started the Atlanta Sai Center. And anyway, one of my best friends was in the kitchen talking to him. And later on, I happened to, just pulled her aside, and I said, hey, what's the story with this guy, that came to my party? She said, man, he just keeps talking about somebody named Sai Baba. So I'm like, wait a second, I just finished a book about this person, So after the party, I called Cosby, and we started meeting up, and he would tell me some of the stories, give me books. Then I would take the books and ship them off to Jeff, because he was, of course, immediately fascinated by it.
So, and then one day you get a call from Cosby.
Yeah, it was, well, something happened in between then, but you keep
Okay.
chronologically, he's forgetting a major part here.
Okay.
So
Right.
basically, he came home to St. Louis with me, where I was born and raised. And he had realized that in all the years that, even though he lived in New York and I lived in Atlanta and we just couldn't make it work, he had still never officially proposed to me. So Christmas night, we were at my mom's house, and he asked me to marry him. And I said, well, why are you asking me to marry you? You know, you won't come to Atlanta, and I ain't going to New York, you know. So we were kind of at a standstill. And then he asked again, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm not giving you an answer. I'm not marrying you unless Sai Baba tells me to, period. Now, we all know what the odds on that were, right?
You figured it was a lock.
Yep.
Being that it was halfway around the world. But little did she know that Cosby Power was going to call her up one day and say,
would you like to go to India with me? And he said, you know, I'm going to probably go around late June or something like that. This was probably around March or something like that. And I said, oh my gosh, yes. You know, and I was self-employed, so I could kind of get out of Dodge whenever I wanted to. And then he said, well, also, I think you should ask your friend Jeff. And I was like, this big silence. I'm like, yeah, you know, we kind of were romantic. We're kind of in this weird place. I don't, you know, I want this to be a real spiritual journey. And I really want to ask him. And he's like, that is so selfish of you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt so bad, you know. And he said, you really should ask him. So I call up Jeff, and I'm like, Cosby is going to India. You don't want to go with us, do you?
I think you were even more emphatic about it than that. It was more like, you don't want to go, do you?
I think it was something like that, yeah.
And I said, sure.
Yeah,
Sounds great to me, because I looked at my calendar as a comedian on the road, and it turned out that about the week, what was it? Did we have a week? Or
I don't know.
Maybe it was 8-9 days. I had that exact amount of time open on my calendar. So I was all in.
Yeah. So we went over there, and we were only in Puttaparthi for 4 days. Don't ask me why, but we only had 4 days there. And probably the first thing that happened when we got there was Jeff sees Baba before me.
But
now,
of course.
Right. Now, I'm an identical twin, and I came out first, and I'm pretty big on being the first one for stuff, you know. So, and of course, we have the same birthday, so go figure. But I was starting to get upset already. He's getting the room with Cosby, so he's hearing nonstop stories. I'm in a room with an Italian girl who doesn't speak any English and is like oming all night, so I can't sleep. So I'm not having.
And she locked you out during the day, didn't she?
She would lock the door in the daytime so she could sleep. I'm going, what's wrong with this?
So I'm totally blissed out, and we would meet to get tea and desserts afterwards, and I'd be talking about all the great stories that I was hearing from Cosby, which just made Diane less and less happy.
Yes.
And I believe it was the third day there, I'd written a letter to Baba about some problems my nephew was having and some health issues with my dad. And he came around, I think I was like in the second or third row, and took it from me. So I was very excited about that. And Diane was so happy when she found out that Baba had taken my letter from me.
So I said to him, so did you ask anything about us? And he said, no, that's your problem, you know. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know. So when I left that, we were leaving the next morning. That was we had one more darshan left. And I walked back, and I got up real early in the morning. I went to Omkar, and these were the days you could sit under Baba's window. So after Omkar, I just went over and sat in the dark under Baba's window, and I said, you know, Baba, I wouldn't have thought about asking anything about my mom or my sister or anybody except me in a letter to him. And all of my letters had been, you know, hey, what am I going to do about this? And how, you know, and I felt really, really, I mean, it was just so emotional. I sat and kind of cried and just felt like I had so much to work on when I got back. And, and then I had a letter to give him, and I tore it up, and I just wrote, Baba, I'm Diane from Atlanta, Georgia. Should I, could we get an interview for Cosby and Jeff and me? And should I marry Jeff? Question mark. That was it. He walked by the women. He kind of looked at me, but nothing, so he goes over to the boys section.
And I'm 13 rows back. I'm practically in Bangalore. So I know there's no chance of me getting to ask Baba for an interview, but I was just praying, Baba, thank you for having us here. And I had come to the conclusion of Baba being an avatar and, as we say in America, the real deal at that point. And I look over and I see this orange shirt standing up. And if you know Cosby Powell, he's the only person that wears orange. And he stands up and looks back. And I realize that if he is standing up, we get to go into the interview. And I am just obviously excited beyond belief. And I get up and go running over there. And of course, the whole time I'm thinking, he's going to send me back. He's going to send me back. I'm not worthy. And we got there, and Diane came from the other side, and we got into the interview room. And we sat there, and Baba talked to different people in the room, telling them, I won't go into it, doesn't matter what he was saying to them, but eventually he took us into the interview room, just the Americans. And he got to talk, Cosby got him to bless an outfit. I had brought a broken crystal from my voice teacher. I didn't know what to get him to bless, so I held it out and he just looked at me and kind of smacked my hand like, you idiot. Okay, and then he'd ask me questions about being married. And I said, yes, I was married once before. He says, yeah, but now you're just kind of friends and stuff. And then he kind of said to me, well, you don't really need to be married if you don't want to be. And I said, oh, good, I'm off the hook, I got an out. And then he got to Diane.
And I think where Jeff really, being a magician and all, really wanted to know if Baba really manifested things, I wanted to know if he was omniscient. I just couldn't fathom that. And I was 37 at the time, had never been married, kind of like the dating queen. I'd give somebody about 2 dates. I don't like your car. Oh, I don't like, whatever, now you're not it. And so he looked over at me and he said, husband? And I said, no, Baba. And he goes, do you want one? And I said, yes. And he said, the way you behave, no good. This man here, And I mean, at that moment, you would think I would be so embarrassed and I would crawl under a chair somewhere or something. But it wasn't that. It was my mind just stopped and went, how did he know that? Facebook wasn't around. Blackberries weren't around. I mean, it was like, I just was so freaked out. I'm like, how did he know? And then he just said, you make a commitment to one person. And I had to even ask Cosby what he said later, because my mind just stopped on the fact that he knew who and what I was and what was going on. So at that point, I'm confused because he's told Jeff it doesn't matter if he stays single or not. So I'm so confused, but it doesn't matter. I'm just like, this is God.
So we go back out in the room with everybody else. And as Baba's talking to us, he moves his hand around. And as he closes his hand, Cosby's head comes between my vision and Baba's hand. And I really can't see what happens. And he opens up his hand and he has a lingam in it. Now, from my experience as a magician, knowing how tight Baba's clothes are and stuff, there's no way that could come from his sleeve. And I knew that he manifested. And he was telling everybody the significance of the lingam. And then he gave it to one Indian gentleman for his puja room. And I'm sitting there and I start thinking and said, Baba, I know that you manifested that. But if anybody ever asks me, especially my magician friends, I'll have to say that I didn't see it. And right at that point, he looks right at me and he starts moving his hand again. But this time, like a magician might hold his hand like this, he holds his hand like this. And out from the center of his hand jumps out the end of a japa mala, and he catches it. So now he's holding his hand like this, and there was no alarm back then. He's holding his hand like this. He's holding the end of the japa mala here. It's vanishing into his hand here, And then he pulls it out, and a japa mala has 108 stones on it. And each one of these was about a quarter of an inch. So this is like 52 inches of japa mala that comes out of his hand. He reaches over it and places it over this German lady's head. And he looks at me and says, "When are you coming back to see me?" And I said, "Anytime you say, you know, Baba." And I thought I heard him say, "Well, next time call first." And I looked at him and I said, "Next time call first?" And everybody starts laughing. And I'm like, "What is everybody laughing about?" And he said, No, next time come with wife." And I didn't skip a beat. I pointed right over to the lady's side, hopefully to Diane, not the German lady, and said, "This one?" And he said, "Yes." And he'd also asked us where we were from. And I told him I was in New Jersey and Diane was in Atlanta. And he kept asking us that back and forth about Atlanta. And so Diane instantly says to him, "Would you marry us?" And is that when he said yes, yes, yes?
Yeah,
yes. And she went to ask him when, and he just stopped the interview.
Yeah.
That was it. And we got vibhuti, got to do Pat Namaskar, and left. And so I'm set. He told me to marry her, but not her. She's not set.
Well, I was.
That's not good enough.
I was really scared, and I thought, well, maybe I didn't hear that right. So I actually had to wait until Cosby got back to the States, and I go, "Did he really tell us to get married?" And he's like, "Yes." You know, I got, okay, I guess I can say okay now. You know, so.
So basically, it took an act of God to get you to marry me.
That's true. I mean, you know, you go back to that proposal, and I'm sitting there saying, "I'll only do it unless Sai Baba tells me to." And you know, you're thinking, yeah, that's going to happen. So apparently it did. So anyway, that was 32 years ago. We got 2 kids.
A dog.
Whatever. Yeah. So.
It must have stuck.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
So you're just a couple of days from deadline day. How's it coming, Shrikant?
Oh, it's coming very well, actually.
Any major problems to overcome yet?
Not major, I guess. Very minor here and there, some of the pillar cloth, but they are being fixed.
How has this lived up to your expectations of coming to Prashanti and working for Baba for Christmas?
It's been a great journey.
We're from Japan.
You're from Japan? And how long have you been here?
In Budapest.
Yes. You've been here for 6 years? And how about you?
I've been here for about 8-9 years, but I keep on going back to Japan.
Okay.
For some time.
And what prompted you to work on the Christmas decorations this year? Why are you working on Christmas decorations?
Because she did last year, and she told me that there was like so much fun to do. So I decided to do with my mother. We asked them to let us join.
And how well known is Sai Baba in Japan? How many people know about Sai Baba?
Lots of people know, of course.
Really? And how did you learn about Sai Baba?
A friend of mine was a devotee, and he used to tell us about Swami, like many things. So one day we decided to come.
And what do you mostly do in Puttaparthi?
Darshan Bhajan.
Darshan and bhajan.
It's coming along great. We have done the first night. First night was awesome. We were on target and on schedule.
This is the first time I've been here for Christmas. And what's the most unexpected thrill for you? Nice experience.
The most unexpected thrill has been the chaos that is in our mind and how Swami works out all of the details, and we get it done anyway. All this chaos and mayhem.
All this chaos and mayhem is putting together the most beautiful decorations for Swami, and everybody is so joyous and working so hard, and we've been working for weeks. This is Diane and her daughter, and they do a lot of music. In fact, we'll give you one of their CDs, and they're just livening the spirit for us today.
Wonderful.
They're also from Atlanta.
You play every day?
To do service, and we weren't sure if we were going to be in decorating or the choir, and they needed us here, so we thought, well, we'll do both. So we'll decorate things and then we'll add some music.
So your seva is to lift people's spirits.
We hope so.
This is the donkey that they are making for
Swami's house? Or
yes,
for where?
Yeah. He's in charge of it, so you talk to him, or he doesn't know English. Pepe, where this is going to?
Where did you learn how to make a donkey?
I don't understand the English.
Okay.
For me, English. This is with the children's choir. This is with the children's choir, and they asked him to help prepare it so they could put it with the children's choir.
Very good.
Yeah, children's choir.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
The problem is that I'm talking to the reef, so I have to... Can you hear me in the back?
Tom, you've been doing this for years. How many?
This is the 8th one in a row, but I've done it prior to that also.
And some of the nuts and bolts, how many people, how many decorations, how many hours you have, how many frustrations do you have?
Well, I guess hours, hours were worth over 12 hours a day, from 7 till 10 some days, often.
How many people?
Up to 150, max usually, 150. Anywhere between 70 and 150 is usually the team. This year it's 150, so it's a pretty big team, but it's also a big job.
What are the big problems you have to encounter?
The big problems are the changes you don't anticipate that are going to happen. Like last night there was an incredible change. We had the Savadals putting in the streamers for the ceiling, and they took it up to a place where we hadn't put one of the big covers on the mandir, so it means that doesn't happen anymore. So there's a whole area we don't have to do. It's good and bad. It's hard to know. We won't know until the whole job's finished, and we'll see what the real outcome of that is. So they're always ongoing challenges. When you have something which you think you're going to do, and you get there, and it's a totally different story. Usually you can anticipate it, but there's always something that will happen.
This has got to be exhausting for you personally for so many years. What's in it for you?
Yes, that's a good question. Every year, I think, once it's over, like usually on the 24th and the 25th, it's always a great relief. And the next year, you know, is so far away that you don't think about it so much. But then when it comes around about October, November, when it all starts to loom up again, you think, oh my God, I've got to go and do all of that. I've got to go and work for 5 weeks more than I work at home in my normal business. I've got to go and work more and more here. But I guess the fact is that because Swami's there, it makes it all possible. If he wasn't there, I wouldn't even think about it. That's the way I see it.
God bless you, Tom. Sai Ram, Merry Christmas, and good luck.
Sai Ram.
Christmas. Swami's going to be very happy, I'm sure. When we were first offered this opportunity, I was a little bit frightened, but as I realized that Swami is the doer, I'm not doing anything anyway, so it just kind of happens around me. I don't know.
There must be countless, thousands of hours of work for everybody involved.
Yes.
Is there room at all for any fun?
Oh yes, we had a great time. It brought us together as a center. It really united us.
It also seems this one activity of Christmas decorations to bring together people from all sorts of faiths, wisdom traditions.
Yes.
That's a pretty nice example of what Christmas is about, isn't it?
Yes, and it's been very nice because we're working with a lot of people from other countries, and it's very nice. We're all one, you know.
Merry Christmas, Tommy.
Merry Christmas.